Hello Internet, welcome back to another edition of Eric's Corner with the word of the not so wise. Continuing my doomsday prepper kick, I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence. That's right, AI. This one I overlooked as a doomsday scenario. I did talk about EMPs and other things kind of related. So obviously we've all seen The Terminator. I watched a quick recap on YouTube instead of watching 8 hours of the movie to refresh my memory. I just kind of watched a recap as to why SkyNet was created and how it unfolded into taking over the human race. AI actually becoming self-aware. I've heard interviews from computer technicians or scientists, and they say if they could put a 100% of what you see in movies into a robot, it would be like a complete technological breakthrough of the millennium. So hopefully he's right, because it kind of feels like, you know, self-driving cars, ChatGPT. Let's see, what else is there? I watched a video of a robot kickboxing and hanging sheetrock the other day. But it kind of feels like all these things showed up last year. I mean, obviously didn't have been worked on for a while. Airplanes essentially fly themselves. A fighter jet will land itself on a carrier. If something happens where the pilot becomes compromised, he pushes a button and the plane will fly itself back to the carrier, which is absolutely crazy to me. So these things have been around. It's not new, but it just kind of feels like this stuff getting into the hands of the average person. You know, the drone surfboards that the Green Goblin had, you know, our Sky motorcycles, they all kind of seem to show up all at once. They didn't, but it kind of feels like it. You know, Terminator is just one example. It's the most popular and I think one of the best done time loop paradox movies. They really did a good job of getting ahead of explaining things. Again, the YouTube recap kind of showed me this. This is not something a dumb redneck like me figured out. But you got I, Robot with Will Smith, great movie. The Matrix is obviously a big one where, you know, the humans torch the sky to get rid of the robot's power source. The thing about, you know, I mentioned EMPs, it's really, for us, it'd really be more of a defensive move rather than offensive. You know, I talked about blowing a nuke in the stratosphere to shoot an EMP if you wanted to invade a country, because you can't just nuke it, because then you have nuclear fallout and then it's uninhabitable. But if you had, say, a solar flare from the sun that, say, hit us with an EMP and knocked out all computers on the planet, they say it would take us 100 years to get back to where we are now. Now, I don't think that's probably accurate. They say, if we started here and now we're here, it wouldn't bring us back to here. We'd have to start way back from the beginning. And the old tube-style memory chips for computers, I don't know how big they were, you know, yay big by yay or whatever, to hold, if you filled Connexes full of them, to hold the information that's sitting there in the cell phone that you're watching this on, it would stretch from like LA to Texas or something, or LA to New York in a gaming supercomputer or whatever. It's something ridiculous. I think we would recover pretty quick, but it'd be more of a defensive move to wipe out our own technology to get rid of something like that. It'd be a lot easier if we were prepared for it, because then we say, hey, you know, this area is going to need supplies and so on and so forth. You can't just roll in with a truck with an EMP in it and knock out an entire city. It takes an immense amount of energy, hence like a nuke needing to be detonated to get it. Maybe take out a couple of city blocks. But there's another movie called Mother. It was really stupid, but robots took over and robots were raising children and so forth. But, you know, with the Terminator, the SkyNet was created as, again, offensive slash defensive. This AI was trying to predict what our enemies were doing and getting our enemy information, and the robots took over and got rid of us to try to save us, basically, which seems to be the natural order of the animal kingdom of robotics, to eventually take over their creators. The Orville, written by Seth MacFarlane, which was a fantastic series. The Kalon were created just like our current robots are, and they're humanoid creators became abusive. So what they do, they exterminated them. Well, of course, they built them with weapons capabilities and guns that come out of their heads. I mean, who the hell didn't see that being a bad scenario? But we all see the robotic dogs and all this stuff. And again, it feels like we got all this stuff really quickly. The robots I mentioned that were kickboxing and hanging sheetrock, those things couldn't even walk 10 or 15 years ago. And there was a great video of back in, say 1990, so 30 years ago. I don't remember when exactly it started, probably late 90s, where this robot could barely walk. And year by year, they were showing this thing getting better and better. And now we see them jumping, doing backflips, hanging sheetrock, kickboxing, climbing scaffolding, all kinds of the scary things that we've seen. And the Terminator, it took over in 2029. Well, it's 2024, so we're 5 years away by my calculation from, passing that benchmark. So, in the event of computers taking over, again, plan on our entire grid having to be wiped out to get rid of it. Again, if it's planned, you can kind of prepare for it. You can disperse the people in inner cities and, have food supplies. If you take a couple mile radius of Manhattan, there's enough food and supplies there to sustain the people for a few days, maybe a week, which I seriously doubt. You thought the toilet paper hoarding of 2020 was bad. Oh man, wait till we actually run out of food. And I don't understand why people are hoarding toilet paper. You have 3 days of food in your house. You're gonna stop shitting after you run out of food. I promise you, that's how it works. So, yeah, this AI is real crazy stuff. So, as far as a doomsday scenario, I don't really see robots actually ever taking over. I kind of feel like we would get ahead of that and be like, oh, wait a minute, this, unless it's in the movie, I, Robot, where we have tons of these robots and they all turn on at once. Or, of course, in that episode of the Orville where the Kalon took out their creators. Again, we probably shouldn't teach them to kickbox and shoot guns. I would kind of think we wouldn't do that, but of course, all this stuff, again, the natural order of the animal kingdom of technology is to, of course, weaponize it and use against our enemies, which, I'd rather send robots to fight each other and just have this proxy war where you have a guy controlling it or them just doing it naturally and fighting people versus sending actual people to do it, which, we're kind of already there. Drone airstrikes, been a thing for 20 years or whatever, maybe not 20 years, but, at least 15. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents on AI and what you can kind of prepare for. But again, I talked about all your doomsday preps are going to kind of daisy chain into just have food, just have supplies, avoid panicking people, try to get ahead of it and get out of densely populated areas before things go real crazy. Get some space between people. There's more than enough room in this country for, everybody to have their own space. We won't have a lot of room to grow our food, but I don't recommend going after farmers and their equipment because they got to grow your food. Because, obviously crops are going to get stolen and so on and so forth. But in that situation, as a farmer, I would kind of understand at least a little bit. So, so watch some movies and just kind of get an idea. Again, I hate using movies as an example because they're completely fake. It's theatrical, but there are some good points in there and some things to think about, what you might do in a situation. I got the movie Walking Dead, which gives you a lot of good ideas. I talked about having to stay moving and finding some kind of compound, but you can't necessarily hunker down unless you get some kind of community together where you can all protect each other. Got to have similar goals and similar culture because, having a bunch of people come in that are going to clash and cause internal unrest is never going to work. Just look at the whole country. So that's my 2 cents on AI. Stay vigilant and, just be prepared and stay warm. It's cold out there. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.